Hi guys, my name is V and welcome to my book nook. So in today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys about the 25 books that I want to read in 2025. So obviously I'll read more than 25 books this year, but these are the books that are highest on my list of priorities, and I just really hope that I can get through them this year. So get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee, and let's get discussing. So the first book that I really want to read this year is And the Mountains Echoed. So shout out to my friend for purchasing me this copy. I will be sending her my therapy bills after this because I know this book is supposed to be so heartbreaking and so beautiful, and I honestly can't wait to read this. I've heard such good things about it. It's a historical fiction as far as I know, the stationery shop of Tehran. This one, again, I've heard so many good things about it. I know that it's kind of a love story and these two people are kind of broken apart and there's a coup going on in their country, and it's just a very touching story. So the next book that I cannot wait to read this year is Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. So this book follows these three sisters and their fourth sibling has passed away, and it's kind of dealing with their lives, their struggles that they're going through, kind of dealing with this, and I cannot wait. This book I'm just so excited to read because I've heard how poetic and how beautiful it is, and I'm just so excited. The next book that I have to read this year is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I know it is a crime that I have not read a Sally Rooney book yet, but this will be the year. 2025 will be the year that I read a Sally Rooney book. So the next book is Piranessi by Susanna Clarke. This book I've heard amazing things about, and I know that you have to go into this book not really knowing anything. That's what everyone has told me. Just the less you know, the more appreciative you'll be about this book. The only thing I know that this is a fantasy book and it's amazing. So the next category of books are the horror thriller kind of books. So first up on this list is Rouge by Mona Awad. This book, I cannot wait for this book. So I read Bunny by Mona Awad last year, and that book was so interesting. It was so different. It honestly felt like reading someone's fever dream. You really didn't know what was happening. So I cannot wait for this one. From what I know, this book follows a girl whose mother passes away, and this girl is kind of obsessed with beauty. She goes to her mother's funeral and is approached by these people, and it's this group that her mother was part of, that they're almost like a cult, and they're very focused on beauty and staying young and maintaining their youth, and it deals with a lot of those important kind of topics, and I just can't wait. Apparently it's told as a very gothic kind of fairy tale. So the next book is a mystery thriller by Lucy Foley, The Guest List. This is more of a whodunit mystery book, and it's set on an island. It takes place at this wedding, and suddenly someone dies and you don't know what's happening, and I can't wait for this one. Next we have The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden. Again, I've heard good things about this one. I know that everyone says Frida McFadden is the queen of thrillers, so I can't wait for this one. Shout out to my friend for getting me this one. My friends have such good taste in books, guys. I'm honestly so lucky. So this one is about a girl named Sydney, and she's finally met like her dream boyfriend and things are going so well, but then there's this murderer going around and he seems to be dating people before he kills them, which kind of makes Sydney very suspicious, and the book goes from there. So this year I really want to try and read different genres, expose myself to different things, get a little bit more uncomfortable with my reading, and get out of my comfort zone when it comes to my books. So I've been trying to get into classics last year, so this year I really hope that I can read a couple more. This is The Essential Kafka. I read Letters to Melina last year, which is basically Franz Kafka's Letters to Melina, and that's a non-fiction, and it was so beautiful and so poetic and made me crave to read more of his work. And this has everything, like all his major works. It has the Metamorphosis, the Trials, the Castle, everything. So I hope I can get through this year. It'll probably be such an amazing read. Speaking of classics, the next one that I have to read is Frankenstein. It's an injustice that I call myself a reader and I have not read so many of these classics, which is why half of these books where they get their inspiration from, and I just really want to be part of that conversation to understand and to appreciate things more. So Frankenstein. And another classic that I want to read is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. That book needs no explanation. Next up is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. It is a mystery book. It's set in this university. It has the dark academia vibes, and that is just straight up my alley, and I cannot wait to get into this one. This is a long time coming. Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. I have read so many books by Sarah J Maas. In fact, that is probably why I'm still a reader today. The A Court of Thorns and Roses series is what got me back into reading, and I cannot wait to get into this one. I'm honestly a bit intimidated to start this one because it's an 8-book series, so it's a bit of a commitment, and when I read a fantasy, I get obsessed with it. It becomes my new obsession. I get obsessed with the world, with the characters, with everything, and I already know I'm gonna be in such a bad book slump after this one, and I've been saving this one and this book here, Six of Crows by Lily Bardugo, because I know they both are really good fantasies, and recently the fantasies have all been following the same kind of generic plot line and structures, and it's all about the tropes, and it lacks that originality to it. These are what built the fantasy genre and made it into what it is. So I've been just saving these in my back pocket for a rainy day when I'm really looking for a good fantasy book. Up next we have the Powerless trilogy. I have book 1 and 2 here, and book 3, Fearless, will be out in April this year if I'm not mistaken. So Powerless is this young adult fantasy. It's set in this kingdom where there's ordinary people and there's people with powers, and the people without powers are killed, right? So you can't be living here if you don't have powers. So we follow this girl named Payton who doesn't have powers, and she's been faking it this whole time, and she ends up through circumstances coming into contact with the prince of the kingdom, and from there she's put into these trials that are very Hunger Games-esque trials, like to the death, and the story goes from there. The first book, I ate this book up. I devoured this book. It was so good. The banter in this book between Kai and Payton, it's a dual point of view book, which you hardly ever see in fantasy. It was just so good. So I cannot wait to get into Reckless and Fearless this year. While we are on the topic of unreleased books, there are so many new good books that are coming out this year. The top of my list is Emilie Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. I cannot wait to see how this trilogy wraps up. To go back to this world and all its quirky characters is just, it's going to be so much of fun. And the next book on my list is the Crimson Moth duology. So I believe the first book is called Heartless Hunter, and the second book will be released in Feb. It's called Rebel Witch. I put off reading Heartless Hunter when it came out because I did not want to put myself through another cliffhanger. You know when you read all these fantasy books and it ends in this jaw-dropping cliffhanger and you have to wait an entire year for the next one. By the time the next one is out, I've completely forgotten everything that's happened, so I just didn't want to put myself through that again. I know Heartless Hunter is about a witch and a witch hunter. I'm sold. Witches, take my money. So I cannot wait to read this, but I'll probably only read this once the second book is out because no more cliffhangers. And speaking of cliffhangers, Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I cannot wait to read this one. The way Iron Flame ended was jaw on the floor. I was shocked. So Onyx Storm is the third book in the Fourth Wing series. So there's Fourth Wing, Iron Flame. The Fourth Wing follows this girl named Violet, she's weak, like physically weak, and she's forced to go to the Riders Quadrant, which in this world is basically, you get different quadrants when you turn, I think when you turn 21, you get to pick like a career is going to be for the rest of your life. So she's forced to the Riders Quadrant, which is very deadly, and people die all the time trying to survive through this, and you're following her journey through college there. I did feel like Fourth Wing was a little bit overhyped. It wasn't the most amazingly written book, but it was really entertaining, and the whole dragons concept to it was just, I really enjoyed it and I had a good time, so I can't wait to read this. Speaking of books that have not been released, Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. It's Abby Jimenez. Do I know what this book is about? No. Am I going to read it? Yes. It's Abby Jimenez. Need I say any more? Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping. Cannot wait. your cozy fantasy book for the year. If it's going to be any, it's going to be this one. So I can't wait for that. The release date for this book kept being pushed back, but I hope it comes out this year because I cannot wait. The last new release that I hope I can read this year is Watch Me by Tahira Mafi. So the Shatter Me series was a YA dystopian series. It's like 8 books long, I think, or 9 books. It's a lot. This book is set after that series, following one of the main character's brothers. I can't wait to go back into that world. It's been so long. I read the Shatter Me series like 3 or 4 years ago, and it was just good time. So I can't wait for that. That is all the new releases that I hope I can read this year. Next up is the romances. So the first one I want to read is Binding 13. I have heard so much about this book. I've heard that it's really emotional, it's really heartbreaking, and I just really want to be a part of the discussion. I want to know, I need to know what this book is about. Just cannot wait to read it. So next up on romances is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So this is Ali Hazelwood's first paranormal romance. So vampires, werewolves. I'm very curious to see what she's done with it because she's been more on the contemporary romance side. So I'm just very curious to see what she's cooked up with paranormal romances. The last romance book that I cannot wait to read this year is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. So I read Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren, and that book was so nice. Summer vibes. The ending, I did not like that ending. It was not for me. But overall, I had a really good time reading that book. This one is fake dating. It's got witty banter. Takes place on a private island. Sold. Ticks all the boxes for a cute little romance. And the last book, the 24th book, is The Unmaking of June Farrow. I heard so much about Adrienne Young's books. I know she's most known for her series Fable, which I haven't read. Hopefully I will. But I've heard this is one of her adult books. It's adult fantasy. It's following this girl who's trying to break this curse on her family. And it has a little bit of mystery, magical realism. It just sounds like a good time. And I cannot wait to read this one. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment down below what's on your TBR list for 2025. And I will see you guys next week.